Today over at HartmannReport.com is about the rise of fascism in America. And, you know, it's titled, have you noticed that, that America has gotten meaner? And here we are. I mean, yesterday, last night, the lead story over on the Washington Post was how in the last 24 hours, the number of death threats to people on the January 6th committee has exploded, and no pun intended. And as a consequence, they're coming up with security details for these folks on this committee. And the point that I'm making with this article is that we need to discuss the violence and threats that are now endemic to the GOP, because they signal a hopefully reversible but possibly terminal slide into fascism. Fascism, let us be very clear. Fascism is violence. The philosophy of fascism is rooted in violence, the domination of the many by the few, whether it's physical violence, political violence, the violence of great wealth, unjustified violence inflicted by the state under the color of law. At its core, though, fascism is rooted in physical violence, intimidation, and murder. It is war brought into politics and governance. And violence like this has its own power and its own attraction. The media is drawn to it, making violence the most powerful recruiting tool a fascist movement has. And insecure, frightened men participating in fascist violence find a sense of agency, of individual power and meaning, a sort of orgasmic release from the life of ordinariness and political impotence. And make no mistake, the Republican Party has become the party of political violence, of fascism. And Democrats continue to treat these fascist Republicans as if they're outliers, as if they're the few bad apples. Joe Biden talks about, well, you know, we can still work across the aisle. No, you can't. Not in any meaningful way. You can work across the aisle to like with this gun legislation, to put up things that look pretty but have no meaning. But actual meaningful legislation, no. They're not gonna participate in that. And frankly, as I said, I think the gun legislation is dead. But, you know, Democrats have watched the violence coming from Republicans, threats of violence against school board members, against nurses in hospitals treating COVID, against abortion providers, against racial minorities and queer people who Republican legislators declare and try to put into law are less than human or aberrations that must not be tolerated in a free society. This is what the Republican Party in Texas said just last week. The media continues to largely ignore these frequent moments when the fascist infiltrated police departments are actually like, you know, when they just last week at the Pine Valley Public Library in Wilmington, North Carolina, the Proud Boys showed up to harass the librarians, and the police. I mean, this is what is happening right now, and the media and the Democrats are going, well, those are the exceptions. No, I'm sorry, this is the new rule. These displays of violence and the willingness to use violence are declarations. They are statements of purpose. They are spoken and executed with pride. They are assertions by the fascists that they intend to exercise violence and its power up to and including murder. Republicans lionize Kyle Rittenhouse for driving from Chicago suburbs to Minneapolis to kill 2 people with an assault weapon. They celebrate police violence with their thin blue line flags and the all-black U.S. flag that says, I'm willing to kill my political opponents. I mean, this is Republicans in their television ads now are all guns, all assault weapons all the time. These are all expressions of fascism. Rusty Bowers, the Republican the Speaker of the House in Arizona, told the story of how people were outside his house chanting threats at him as his daughter lay dying. Not a word from Ronna Romney McDaniel about that, about the embrace of violence by the base of the Republican Party that she leads. Not a word from congressional Republicans about the violence against their own fellow Republicans. Brad Raffensperger and Rusty Bowers. Not a word from any of them. Not a word from Republican media other than to cynically mouth excuses and justifications, because violence is now their brand. They revel in it. They boast about it. Sharon Angle, the Second Amendment solutions. Donald Trump, I can murder someone on Fifth Avenue and I'll still get elected. These are proud statements of their willingness to use violence. And we have to reconcile this with, with our current reality. This is no different than ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Those are fascist organizations also. They use violence. They drive around and, a bunch of guys with assault weapons in the back of a pickup truck. It's happening in America right now. And for Republicans in Congress, this is not a problem. It can happen here.